All right, solvent traps, another topic. What are solvent traps? Basically, they're tubes with little cups and things inside them that are all solid that could thread onto the end of a barrel. Okay, and what they are is like a sound suppressor, but not drilled out. And they're not illegal until you start modifying them. Well, the ATF had a big announcement today that they're changing again something in the definition, or changing the rules to where, I guess how it works is, even though the parts are not drilled out and can function as a suppressor, they're still going to label them as suppressor components. So if you have a solvent trap that is just a bunch of pieces of aluminum screwed together with no hole in the middle, they're still going to define this as a sound suppressor, which is a restricted item and has to be registered and with the federal government. Okay, and it's illegal to be in possession of one without said registration and forms. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not illegal to do this unless you live in the 13 states where none of these devices by state law, and New York State was one of them. There were no automatic weapons, no suppressors, no I think it's class 3 type device or whatever that's controlled by the government. You are allowed to legally own it as long as you go through the process, and you are allowed to take said devices and modify them into a firearms silencer or suppressor. Okay, and it's been done. There were videos on YouTube where the guy showed the paperwork and he showed how he did the work, and I don't know if those are allowed anymore, but there was a lot of controversy in this, and I've done several videos on these items, and they did get an extremely large amount of views as compared to anything else that I have put out on my channel. And I just discussed them, and yes, my video clips have been taken, and I've been on Facebook and all over for these advertisements and that, and there ain't much I can do about it. I've gotten tons of emails, and even now whenever one comes up on Facebook, all my friends, "Hey Mike, ain't that you?" And I'm like, whatever. So what is this new ruling kind of saying? Well, they kind of done this in the past, because if you ordered them, the place you'd buy them was from China, and you'd buy a couple different types. That's what I did to look at them. And what would happen is when they came through customs, they would actually declare them as firearms parts, and you would have to show up with your manufacturer's license, whatever, and come and physically get them and prove to them that you are a manufacturer and that you are licensed and you have paid all your federal taxes, or you lost the shipment, and they started confiscating them. So you've seen less and less of them come up. The solvent traps, you don't see them as frequently as you did, and there are several different types in that out there. But after hearing this, and after my wife told me, I said, well, let me see if you can find any. And when I did a quick search, and we're going to go look at some stuff here of the internet, if you wanted to order them from China, like with one of the overseas websites that orders the stuff, they're not there. I've noticed that they're not there. But when I punched in the computer this morning and just did a search for solvent traps in general, this is what come up on my Microsoft web browser. And they have them all here. Solvent trap kit. These are the solid ones. the solid monocores, and they're all going to the same place, usasolventtrap.com. These are the monocores, and another monocore. It's $85 for this one here. But they do have, let me see the other ones. They do have some of the more fancier ones. This one here was one that you used to be able to get from China. These are $128.99. And they're all kind of aluminum. And it shows you all the little internal things they got. Then before they started cracking down, you used to be able to get these from China. And it's a modular design, kind of like the new modular type, that you can put together. And these are made out of aluminum. Most of these are made out of aluminum, and how durable they'd end up is, a question. And I've seen these where they were offered in stainless steel and titanium, but for upwards to like $400. Now, if you're getting into this, $400 for a solvent trap or something, if you really want a suppressor, you might as well go to the store and buy it, fill out the forms, wait the 6 to 8 months, and get the thing, and have it legal if you're going to spend that much money. And these here are $150 for these aluminum ones. And, people will ask, well, how do they hold up? Well, obviously aluminum is not the same thing. Any quality suppressor is made out of some sort of steel or titanium. Okay. Aluminum, is not going to be durable. That's why they're cheap and all that other stuff like these things here. And this company's just about selling every type that's out there. How long they're going to stay in business, or is the ATF going to get a court order and, confiscate their sales records? They can do that, and then you're going to have agents knocking at your door wanting to know what you did with this solvent trap device. So another thing is, people ask, are these things, do they work? Well, anybody who's been around guns has seen all the things where they make a little adapter where you put a empty 2-liter soda bottle on the end of a pistol or rifle, and it muffles the sound. Okay, it's like an old trick or something. Or they had one where you took a oil filter from a car and did something where you made an adapter and used the oil filter. Okay, so yeah, if you drill the things out, aluminum or not, if they withstand a muzzle blast, they'll muffle the sound. That's why it's called a sound suppressor. So, if they work, and there's people I've seen on YouTube. There was a guy that made one of them little solid ones and did the paperwork, and then went out and fired it full auto with some AR-15 or M16 till it exploded. So yeah, they do work, okay, to a degree. Granted, an aluminum device is not going to be the same as one made out of stainless steel or titanium, like some of the top-of-the-line suppressors that are out there. But, they've tried to make them legal. They've tried to remove them as a firearm accessory to just where you just buy them unrestricted. Okay, but again, the legal thing, they have not been able to get over that. I remember that back in, I think, 2017 and again in 2020. They tried to remove them as being a Class 3 item. And really, my personal opinion, I really don't need a suppressor. Like I said, I can go and buy one. I can go to the store, fill out the paperwork, turn it in sheriff's office stamp. My neighbor has them, and he actually went and built a Ruger rifle with the integral suppressor. It looks like a bull barrel on there, but there's it's a suppressed rifle. I forget, it took him over a year to get A, the parts, and B, the paperwork and everything they had done. And he shoots squirrels with it here in the development because he doesn't want to alarm anyone. So he has a use for it. Okay. To tie up like $1,000 in an accessory, have it registered, then you got to dispose of it. You just can't just sell it, and have it locked up in the house. I really don't need that. I just go buy a $15 jar of earplugs and do all my shooting there. I really don't see where the expense would be worth for me to have one. But I guess the problem is it is quite simple. It's not that difficult to convert these things into some sort of a suppressor, and that is what's upsetting them. Okay, I'm not saying that you should do it, but obviously if there's a problem like this, a lot of people do it illegally, which does carry it's some serious fines. I think it's like 10 years in prison and $100,000 or a couple $100,000 fine for doing it. Okay, you might be able to weasel out of going to jail, but you're going to have to pay to do that. You're going to have to pay $100,000. So unless you got an extra $100,000 lying around the house that you can worry about that shit later, I would not recommend doing it. Or even now, I guess, even just possessing them, okay, is another thing. Just having one, having the parts for one, I believe is going to be problematic. So that's the crux of this story. So that's it. Another interesting, fun topic to talk about. Gun control and overreach of the ATF or whatever. It's all nonsense. Best thing to do is not fool with them. Stay out of trouble. All right, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned.